What's going on, guys? Welcome to the video. We had more Trump derangement syndrome on the Venereal disease show yesterday, obviously due to the shootings in America over the last few days. Of course, the Democrats in the US are screaming from the hills how it's Donald Trump's fault these random lunatics decided to commit these crimes. Being the BBC, they are keen to gloss over the Dayton shooting in favour of the El Paso one. I wonder why. Some might say it's because of the greater loss of life, when actually I doubt it's that. I expect it has something to do with reports that are surfacing claiming the incident in Dayton was perpetrated by an Antifa member. Among other things, they conveniently leave out of this discussion that they can't blame Trump for. On the show, they have a lady who lost her daughter in the mass shootings last year in Santa Fe, and the director of the pro-gun organisation, the Texas Concealed Handgun Group, who is also an NRA instructor. Victoria is keen to point that last bit out, so I will get in there first. Let's check it out.
The two attacks within hours of one another have inevitably reignited the debate surrounding gun control. There have now been more than 250 deadly mass shootings in the US in 2019. We can talk live now to Rhonda Hart. Her daughter, Kimberly Vaughan, was one of 10 children and teachers killed at Santa Fe High School in 2018, and this is her first interview with the British media. She says nothing about gun policy will change in the US until a politician's child is attacked. Also with us, Larry Arnold, director of the pro-gun organisation, the Texas Concealed Handgun Association, and he's also a National Rifle Association instructor. Thank you very much, both of you, for talking to us. I would like to ask you both, and I'll start with you, Rhonda Hart, if I may, is Donald Trump's rhetoric on immigration a factor at all here?
I believe it is. There was a study that was just put out very recently that said in towns where he had had rallies, the increase in violence had been over 200%.
Larry Arnold, is there a link in your view?
I think there's enough hate coming from both sides. We're seeing, you had the interview with Mr. O'Rourke. He did not sound very level-headed either. Hate is hate, regardless of which side it comes from.
So, sorry, hate on both sides. Could you give us a little bit more information on what you mean there, Mr. Arnold?
The Democrats, just before the last election, said that the losers would cause chaos. Turns out they were correct, except they weren't expecting to be the losers. Mr. Trump certainly has added fuel to the fire, and both sides are going at it. In addition, you have all of the hate that's spewing out on social media. We have some situations on college campuses where young people are trying to get professors fired, even those that are on their own side. The hate seems to be pervasive on both sides of the aisle.
So VD wastes no time getting straight into asking, is Donald Trump's rhetoric on immigration a factor at all here? And of course, being a Democrat, this woman thinks everything bad that happens in the world is Donald Trump's fault. When I'm sorry, you cannot blame other people's words for the action of the deranged few who do shit like this. Any rational person would never do something like this, let's be honest. People's speech does not make others take action. And as for the anti-illegal immigrant sentiment in the United States, that has been there long before Donald Trump was president. No citizen in a country really wants uncontrolled immigration because eventually it will reach a point where it cannot be sustained, and that will affect everyone. Even the people who originally campaigned for uncontrolled immigration and the immigrants themselves. The Mexican border crisis is something that existed before Trump. Obama was called the deporter-in-chief, but both the US and UK media never point that out. I would say Obama had a pretty hardline stance on illegal immigrants. But oh no, because Trump's a Republican and wants to build a wall, he is the fucking devil who makes people commit mass shootings. I'm sorry, but this whole narrative from the left is ridiculous. Many outlets are reporting the shitweasel in El Paso who killed these people ranted about the Democrats, illegal immigrants and the Republicans, with a lot of media misquoting his so-called manifesto and omitting parts like he was terrified of global warming and how people won't change their ways, so we need to reduce population growth, and the usual nonsense lunatics like him go on about, obviously. I mean, this woman actually cites some study that claims towns where Donald Trump holds his rallies have seen more than a 200% rise in violence. Of course, forgetting that this idiot was from Allen, Texas, where Donald Trump has not held a rally. So I'm sorry, but that study is completely irrelevant to what you are saying. You did a quick search on studies against Donald Trump, bringing up this worthless piece of information you use as evidence to back up your claims Trump is responsible. It was a nice try, but like I said, he was not from a town that held a Trump rally. And from what reports are saying, he might not even be a Trump supporter. The host then asks the same question to her other guest, who rightly points out there is equal hate on both sides, referring to an earlier clip showing an interview with a Democrat who was slightly unhinged in his rhetoric. Shit the Democrats like AOC come out with can be attributed to people who have committed unspeakable acts, but that does not mean they are the ones responsible for it. The media and politicians need to stop using these events as political weapons to club each other, and call it for what it is. It's a deranged lunatic who is not all there in the head. He would have done something like this regardless of anyone's words. Trying to blame others is completely pointless. The only person responsible is the dickhead who took a gun with them with a plan to kill unarmed civilians. You cannot even blame the gun, as guns are not deadly unless it's in the hand of someone who intends to use it to commit a crime. A gun in the hands of someone who is not a lunatic is generally perfectly safe. The same with most police officers or military personnel. A car in the hands of a traffic cop is generally safe, but a car in the hands of a joyrider is not. I don't hear people calling for cars to be banned. Humans commit these acts, not the inanimate objects we have created, and neither does the words of a president or any other politician. Crazy people commit these crimes, and the media and political parties need to stop using it in smear campaigns against each other. Did anyone else notice when the dirty commie cumbucket Victoria Derbyshire asked the pro-gun guys to clarify why he thinks it's the fault of both sides? Why did she not ask the woman why it's just Trump's fault? Nice bit of impartiality there, Victoria. He rightly points out the Democrats said during the 2016 election campaign that the losers of the election will cause chaos. Of course, they didn't think Trump would win, making them the losers. Going on to point out that students in America have been getting professors fired even if they are on the same side as these students. We have all seen it happening. It's not just the professors getting it though. Take a look at that bakery over in the US that sued the university because its students and staff started a campaign against them because of a couple of black kids stole items from their bakery and got caught. If you want to blame one side, then you have to blame both. Of course, the media won't do that. Orange man bad is all they know.
Right. That's interesting because it's President... I mean, you did acknowledge that President Trump has added fuel to the fire. That's your belief. But it was the president who called Mexicans rapists and criminals. It was the president who said Congresswomen of colour should go back home. It was the president who called illegal immigrants animals. The 21-year-old white man charged with this shooting is believed to have posted this document online calling the attack a response to the Hispanic invasion of Texas.
He also called out both Republicans and Democrats as far as sources of his hatred. I don't think it's all on President Trump. I don't think it's all on Democrats. I think they're both going at it just about as fiercely as they can.
But there aren't any...
There are calls for impeaching Mr. Trump. There are calls...
Yeah, calls for impeaching Mr. Trump.
One of the shootings that we had recently...
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. There is a delay on the line. It wasn't the Democrats who called undocumented immigrants animals. He said, these aren't people. These are animals. What
Mr. Trump says is Mr. Trump's problem. That's not what I understood we were here to discuss. Okay. However, one of our shootings, again, was a person targeting a Republican congressman. What we're seeing is hatred on both sides, and they're feeding each other.
Okay, so Victoria starts off that clip with complete lies. The US president did not call Mexicans rapists and criminals. He was calling the proportion of illegal immigrants crossing the US border that are rapists and criminals what they are. He did not call every single Mexican citizen rapists or criminals, you disingenuous spunk trumpet. It's common knowledge people who are trafficked over the US border are being raped by other illegal immigrants and the people trying to smuggle them across the border. And let's not forget that every person who crosses the US border illegally is a fucking criminal, you idiot. You know, the term illegal immigrant is given because they broke the law. Last I checked, breaking the law makes you a criminal. She goes on to quote the killer's manifesto because he is against mass immigration from Mexico, like that makes him a Trump supporter. I'm sure Democrat supporters don't want uncontrolled immigration from South America or Mexico, even if their political party does for some unknown reason. I have already said the guy's political affiliation is still in doubt, and the media are completely glossing over his eco-warrior statements in his manifesto. The Dayton shooter is being reported as a member of Antifa, and conveniently the BBC only briefly mentioned that shooting at the beginning of this programme, but not again. I guess the Antifa killer is not as important to the BBC because it goes against their narrative and they can't blame Trump. The pro-gun guy points out what I have said about this hatred from all parties, so it cannot be blamed on Donald Trump, before Victoria interrupts him, claiming Democrats didn't call illegal immigrants animals. Like that matters. The guy did not kill these people because Donald Trump called illegal immigrants animals. He killed them because he was fucked in the head and did not want immigrants coming to the United States. Trump did not make him hate immigrants. I'm sure he felt like that for a long time. Of course, we all know Victoria, Derbyshire has a acute case of Trump derangement syndrome from Trump's state visit to the UK, so her being impartial was never going to happen. The pro-gun guy calls out Victoria, Derbyshire because they have got him on here to discuss gun laws, not what Donald Trump has said. So not only do the BBC throw bias-based smear jobs out there on people, but they don't even stick to the subject matter that they ask their guests to come on to discuss. This poor guy should have known this was a BBC smear piece against Donald Trump, not a discussion on gun laws in the US. The BBC don't do honest reporting these days. Let's move on to the next clip.
Rhonda Hart, do you think both sides have a responsibility when it comes to the language of hate?
I do, but I will tell you that as a Democrat and as a Democratic supporter, I don't see hate language. I see hatred for us. We're angry. We're upset that language is being used. We're upset that he is targeting 4 freshman members of Congress, also women. Our anger comes from his actions, and we're angry in a good way that we want to try and fix this.
But you will have heard the clip there. You will have heard your president say there is no room for hate in the US. And he blamed mental illness for the shootings. His daughter, Ivanka Trump, said white supremacy is an evil and has to be countered.
Well, ma'am, I do not believe that mental illness is the main cause. I can tell you in our shooting at the high school at Santa Fe, Texas, it was, I think, 3 parts: that Texas has lax gun laws, the school district had not been paying attention to what had happened, and then we had a young man that was not well, and he had readily access to deadly firearms.
Well, Victoria asked the woman if she thinks it's on both sides, which she laughs at for some reason before saying yes, it is both sides, but she is a Democrat, so it's not really the left's fault, is it? It's Trump's fault, and they just hate him and his speech. Except reality seems to show different. Look at all the times you hear of Trump supporters being attacked because they support Trump. People are physically assaulted for wearing a MAGA hat, for fuck's sake. Of course, she thinks her hate is okay because it's against Trump and his supporters. Are you for real, love? Considering what you have lost, I would have thought you would have had a sensible outlook on this situation. You can't condemn hate while saying your side's hate is okay because reasons. It don't work like that. This woman actually gets salty when Victoria tells her what Trump said. You can see the look of astonishment on her face, as if to say, how dare you question my narrative? Trump is evil and our hate is fine. This is some acute Trump derangement syndrome if you ask me. When she talks about the shooting that took the life of her own daughter, not one of the reasons she cites has anything to do with Donald Trump. None of that reinforced her point about Trump's rhetoric. She blamed guns, the school, and the guy's obvious mental health issues with access to guns. I have to say, she holds her emotions well talking about the shooting that took her own daughter last year. That can't be easy. Let's move on to the next clip.
Larry Arnolds, I want to read you this message from one of our British viewers who are listening to you both speak to us live now. We're grateful for your time. Andrew says, how typical to see speaker after speaker in El Paso praising the emergency services, offering prayers for the victims and their families, eulogising the strength of the community and blaming mental health issues, while totally ignoring the massive elephant in the room, the desperate need for gun control legislation in the USA. Has he got a point?
I think he has a point on one. On the other hand, Britain is now proceeding so far down that path that they're looking at pointy kitchen knives and banning glass mugs in pubs. And still the violence is there. I don't think that the guns are the problem. I think they may be a symptom of the problem, not mental illness, but just hate. A lot of mentally ill people are very stable, very responsible members of the community. Mental illness is not just a catchphrase. It's something that happens to a lot of people, and they're not necessarily more dangerous as a result of it.
Absolutely, of course. But doesn't it make sense that if there are fewer guns, then there will be fewer shootings?
That may be true. On the other hand, we recently had an incident in Japan where there are practically no guns, where someone sprayed a flammable liquid around and killed people. 3 of the worst mass killings in the United States that I remember, the Happy Land nightclub, the Murrah Federal Building, and 9/11, were carried out entirely without firearms.
Yeah, I
we
know
see people in Europe running over people with trucks.
I notice you deflect
If
every
violence
question
is
about
violence.
guns. I notice you deflect every question about guns and refer to some other violent means when you know that the number of mass shootings across the US so far this year is more than the number of days.
To counter the gentleman's argument.
That depends on how you define.
I'm going to let Rhonda Hart come in here.
That depends on how you define a mass shooting.
Go ahead, Rhonda Hart.
I'm going to counter the gentleman's argument about the mass killing of 9/11. Last year, we lost 40,000 Americans to gun violence. My daughter was one of them. If you take 40,000 and divide it by 2,966, I believe that was about the number of people killed in 9/11. It is the equivalent of 13 9/11 attacks that happen every year to Americans. And our Congress is not doing anything. I remember immediately following the 9/11 attacks, there was invasive security. I was stationed on an Army base. We had all of our tactical equipment up and ready to go. When you flew, now we can't take our shoes off. And guess what? We have stopped hijackings. But if you look at that as far as what happened after Columbine shooting, which I was also a student in that era, after Columbine, we made it easier to get guns. We made it easier, essentially, so that a hijacker could take a plane and commit another act. It doesn't make sense to me.
Will anything change, Rhonda Hart?
I think that right now we are taking baby steps. We just elected a great gun sense majority into the House of Representatives in this midterm election. We are working on the Senate, but we really need to have this discussion with the lawful gun owners that, number one, nobody wants to take your guns. That's the rhetoric that gets spewed so much in Texas. I personally have a deep respect for anyone that chooses to have a gun in their house, but I also, please, I beg you that you make sure it is locked up safe and secure and also away from the ammunition.
Thank you both very much for your time. We really appreciate it. Rhonda Hart, whose daughter Kimberly Vaughan was one of 10 children and teachers killed at Santa Fe High School in 2018. in her first interview with the British media. Thank you for your time. And we also spoke to Larry Arnold, director of the pro-gun organisation, the Texas Concealed Handgun Association, and he is a National Rifle Association instructor.
Okay, so Victoria reads out a comment from a British viewer, because I guess she couldn't be bothered to ask him anything herself? So the BBC are taking this random comment from a viewer, and they claim it's an important question. Sorry, but a British guy's opinion on gun control is fucking irrelevant. We do not have a country like theirs, or gun laws like they do, to even be able to sit there preaching to them on how to fucking fix it. We have not experienced it, and let's be honest, we can't even sort out knife crime in the UK, so who the fuck are we to talk to anyone about sorting out any other violent crime? The person who commented stated the US needs gun control laws, forgetting that shit is state controlled if I remember right. I doubt it's even something the Trump administration could do, but like I said, I don't really know enough about the US gun laws to say that for sure. The pro-gun guy responds with the claim that the UK wants to go far on controlling weapons like pointed objects and beer glasses in pubs, but violence still occurs. I've not heard the beer glass one myself, but it would not surprise me if it was true. He goes on to say it's not mental illness, when I disagree with that. Lots of people with mental illness are perfectly fine, as he said, and will never do anything like this. But there is always the deranged few who will. There is no question in my mind that the people who commit these acts have completely lost the plot. He then points out the many attacks over the years that have used other means to cause carnage. Before the other guest pipes up with 40,000 people die to guns each year, when 9/11 was only 2,600, so gun crime is like 13 times 9/11. The number does not matter, love. His point is, people will carry out these attacks regardless of the weapons available, but this situation is an extremely complex one. In her defence, she does say she is not completely against people owning guns, but she did not come up with one strategy to deal with it. What a completely wasted discussion this was. No one on the panel had any ideas on how to fix the mass shooting issue in the USA, and the BBC was only interested in blaming Trump, even though, by the sounds of it, the guests had been asked on to discuss gun control laws in the US. Both seemed slightly baffled the discussion was centred so much on Trump. The pro-gun guy even called her out for it during the interview. It seems the BBC's Trump derangement syndrome is back in full swing. If it's not Brexit, then it's Trump. They must go into shit fits when both Trump and Brexiteers do something at the same time that they can use to smear them. Victoria Derbyshire cannot hold back her anti-Trump bias once again. I'm surprised she didn't try to blame the USA shootings on Brexit and Trump. Well, I'm going to end the video there, guys, anyway. Let me know what you think down in the comments section below. Remember to like, subscribe and share this video as it helps the channel a lot. And I will see you all in the next one.